Welcome to episode 330 of the Board Game Barbecue podcast, brought to you by Advent Games, More Than Meeples, and our legendary Patreons. Thank you, Patreons. Without your support, we could not run this ship. Right. I think definitely not. We can't run this ship anyway. I am joined tonight by my friend down in Sydney, Lauren. How you doing, Lauren?
Yeah, good, mate. Probably not running the ship. You and I would just be kind of running around the sails frantically of a sinking ship, maybe.
If you were on a ship and you had a role in a pirate ship, what would you be?
Or the guy that just sits at the very top and looks out and yells when there's trouble. Nothing effective. I'm just going to
I want to man the cannons. I want to do that. Just like, loading up the gunpowder, stuffing it in, firing. That would be so cool.
Maybe I could be the mermaid stuck at the front of the boat.
The big wooden mermaid. And we're also joined by a fellow Queenslander in Jay Bendixen. How you doing, bro?
Yeah, good. The bucket that you gave me makes a lot more sense. I've been paling out water for the last hour, and I had no idea why, and now I understand.
So he would be the bucket boy? Is that what you're saying?
That's basically the job I've been given.
You're a bucket boy. Yeah, well, Jay's joined us before on the show and obviously has had a lot of things going on in the board game industry. And actually, we caught up yesterday at the Brisbane Game Day. I saw you there, and I tested your game with my son, which hasn't got a sort of finished working title. It's up in the air of what that might be. And that was great fun. It was lovely to play with two people. It was their first Brisbane Game Day, which was really cool. The two people, obviously, that was Darcy, I believe, and
Jade. No, Steph.
Steph. There we go. We got there in the end.
That was a different group, but yeah, Steph.
And yeah, that was great fun. And yeah, it's just how's things been? What have you been up to?
What have I been up to? I mean, I actually went back and looked at last time I was on the pod, and I think it was like 2 years ago, maybe around this time 2 years ago, from Oceania month. So thank you again for having me back. I was wondering if I'd ever come back on after the debauchery that I brought last time, but great to be here. Yeah, I guess for me, last time we chatted, Surf's Up was sort of in its stages of like near completion, and I was preparing to head to PAX to sort of sell a short print run of the game. And then sort of after that was waiting for a retail release that was going to be with Good Games Publishing. And, I guess since that has all happened, the game's sort of gone into retail now. So I've sort of seen people out in the wild just playing the game and leaving reviews. And, I see it at the game days as well, on the tables and in the library as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty cool, a bit of a roller coaster of like 2 years of sort of seeing that fulfill and, people enjoying it, from moving on from like the prototype staging. So, and then I guess from that point on, I just, got really into the concept of making more games. So I don't know how I found the time, but I've managed to just continue to make more games.
You definitely seem to find the time, because every time I see you, you have something different, right? I've seen variations of other games that I won't sort of go into detail on because I don't know.
Please do. Please.
Well, the honey, the one with the bees and the honey, the queen bee one that we played maybe a year ago was fantastic. Absolutely loved that. Thought it was a brilliant game, and hopefully to see that one day on shelves as well. And yeah, you seem to always have different things going on. So how do you find not just the time, but just the sort of brain power to manage all these different projects? Because you just came up to me yesterday and was like, yeah, I had the party game idea and I made it, and then I took it away on holiday and it was great, and my the daughter loved it, and yeah, now I'm brought it here and we're going to play it here and test it here. You seem to have lots of stuff going on. So how do you find that, managing all that?
Yeah, I mean, I've got 2 kids and a wife and a full-time job as well. So I often ask myself the same question, but I guess my background is in sort of creative arts. So I work in advertising as well. So I guess coming up with ideas and fleshing them out is sort of part of my day job in a way as well. So I guess it was sort of second nature for me to apply that to the other thing I really love, which is games. So I guess it's sort of, I think having Surf's Up come out and working on other projects, during all that time, I guess that sort of unlocked that skill set and probably just gave me the confidence to go, I can keep doing this and keep coming up with the different ideas. And I think now you have that, once you sort of unlock that skill set or way of thinking, you suddenly start seeing the world in a slightly different way. And you might watch a documentary about, whales, or you might see something about something completely random, like a weird system you've never understood about music or something like that. And suddenly you go, I wonder how that could be a game. And then suddenly it's just like, that's just ticking in your head for a little bit. And then, like I was away and over the holidays and we went down south and I was just starting to think about like native Australian animals or stuff like that. And, a few game ideas just came from their systems as well. So I think I'm probably driven by getting like a few seed ideas and then I'll just quickly jot them in my phone and then, I'll be sort of doing something else and then suddenly I'll be driving and go, oh, this system would work perfect for that idea. So I think now that I'm like open to always having those mechanics and systems like constantly flowing past, it's like, quickly grab one and, pocket that for later and see if that I can turn that into a game idea. But yeah, I think mainly because I probably prefer lighter to medium weight games. So it's probably easier to have a few more things on the go because I'm not making like an entire card set or tile set for like a 3-hour Euro. I can more focus on refining something that's like a tight system.
Well, you convinced my son that our game was going to be 3 hours when we
good, yeah.
Like Gaz is about 3 hours, and then he's like, "Is it really 3 hours, Dad?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. I haven't played it." He's like, "Oh, okay."
You guys smashed that out in like 20 minutes. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, exactly. We must have cheated.
Yeah.
It was great. It was great fun, and like you also actually did a talk at PlayCon, which was very cool with David and Samara as well. David Walsh.
Yeah, another fellow Queenslanders.
Yeah, and that was very cool. I only caught like the second half of it, but yeah, it was very, very good. How did you find that? And did you enjoy it on the whole? Is this something you would do again?
Absolutely. I mean, the event, like here's a PlayCon plug while we're here. The event was amazing. Like first year, for that to be the first year out of the gates event, like that was just phenomenal. Like I haven't gone to a huge amount of events, but I have gone to PAX a lot of times. So PAX is like my benchmark of like what's for Australia at least, like what is like top tier. And then like PlayCon was like sitting right up there for me because it serviced a different type of group again, but it did it so well. And it was just, I wasn't behind the scenes to see like the inner workings of it all, but from just like a patron coming in and seeing it, I was just like, this is like a well-oiled machine. This thing ran so well. And I think to be part of first year of that was really, really exciting. I know like David and Samara and myself, we had a group chat talking about how we sort of felt like we looked at the lineup of other guest speakers and we're like, oh, great. There's like Phil Walker Harding and Matthew Dunstan and like Ian O'Toole and like all these amazing big names. And it's like, and then there's us. Why are we on this list? But like, we understood we represented like the newcomers of like, people that are just having their games first come onto the scene. But, we felt just so honored that we were even part of this like selected list of like amazing people that are in the industry. And I think like, we really wanted to have something insightful to say for that because we're like, oh, this is like a pretty big honor to be part of this. So, we wanted to sort of, add to what you guys were creating for PlayCon. But yeah, it was cool. Like it was cool that we could be the representatives for, that voice for that event. So
that voice is really important because there's a lot of people that are out there that are just fiddling with ideas at home and they've never taken that first step. Whereas you guys, you've taken that first step and also just started to get past to that step. You know what I mean? You have games that are published and you're looking at making more games and publishing more games. Whereas potentially there's a lot of people that haven't got that far yet. All they've done is create some ideas. They have ideas, but they don't have any knowledge on what they're doing next with those ideas. And it was a pretty good turnout as well. Like there was quite a few people there and it was good.
I was half expecting just to like, as like people, before people were coming in, we're sort of looking at each other like, cool, I can't wait to like talk to the 3 people that come in and sit at the seats and we can just have a pretty intimate conversation. And it's like, oh, finally once we kicked off, like the room felt almost full. I was like, wow, people actually coming to like listen to us talk. This is frightening. What else? Surely they've got something better to do with their time.
I think it's true, right? You guys do represent people that I think have quite successfully broken in with their initial designs and have made quite a splash. That's not a Surf's Up pun. It's just, but I mean, Surf's Up as well. It's had some great coverage. It's been covered, Shut Up and Sit Down podcast, and it's been pretty widely reviewed and received. And in a recent podcast, I spoke to Peter C. Hayward, designer of Things and Rings, so on and so forth. And he talked about his minimum viable prototype of just bunging something together and straight away getting his ideas to paper. So what does that look like for you? You got your notes app on your phone.
That's basically like that's like layer one, notes app. I actually did my research and listened to that episode, by the way. So and I totally agreed with a lot of stuff Peter was saying, because I think when we were having that conversation at PlayCon and presenting sort of our perspective, I think it was really important for us to sort of be the next stage of okay, this is, if I have an idea, I'm not too far away from, could be these guys where they've had an idea and they've pursued it further. And I think, that can be inspiring for people because it's okay, I can take this idea and work on it and hopefully get it to a certain point where, this could be something like that. And I think my shortcomings, when I was first starting out, was the biggest thing was and you get warned about this so much, is make something as quick as you can that can get to the table. And I think because I've got a background in creative arts and all that, all I wanted to do was tinker with images and design. And I think probably half the time I spent was just making up these beautiful prototypes, which would be obsolete the first play they get. So I think that is a really important learned lesson of making that minimum viable prototype. I like that term, because the first test you could have could just be totally a fail, and you've just invested all this time. And I remember one of the games I was working on prior to Surf's Up, I think I probably spent an entire week doing art and cutting out and rounding the edges of all this black stock cardboard, and have player boards. And then we played it and it was oh, this doesn't work at all. This is I've just lost 40 hours of my life because I just invested all this time during every night doing this. And it's I think the more you make stuff and the more you see your games break, it's so important to go, okay, how do I not overinvest in something that I'm not quite sure if it's even going to work yet? And I think a lot of seasoned designers, and I'm only starting to learn this now, will almost just write on card. It's just write it down, or just print something, use a spreadsheet and a sort of software that you can sort of just print the cards from a spreadsheet, and just get the cards straight done, black and white, boom, straight to the table, and just make sure the idea is even going to work. Otherwise you've just wasted such a huge amount of time where you could have been iterating on those failures already.
The other thing that interested me as well is you're saying that you've got all these kinds of different ideas whirling around at once, drawing inspiration from native animals when you're on trips. And as someone who can only read one book at a time, I can't read two books and have the two stories in my mind. How do you have all of these different games on the go and in your head at a time and juggle those balls?
I don't read any books, so that's probably it's one thing I have to don't worry about. I don't know. I think I've always really enjoyed systems and pondering over little ideas, and I think it's definitely, I've noticed myself zoning out a little bit more these days, and my wife will just stare at me and she'll be like, "You're thinking about a game idea, aren't you?" And I'm like, maybe, while we're having a serious discussion about something, and probably because she's just said something to me that's triggered an idea or triggered a solution, and she's like, hey, come back to me now. So I think it's I'm definitely still learning how to compartmentalize that a bit, because, and trying to work out what's priority. Because as you start making more stuff and you get things into different stages of development, or you've got stuff with publishers that are more urgent than this great idea that you have that you just can't get away from, it's really hard to break away from say I've got I might have one idea I'm really psyched about, just getting to the table or getting something ready, and I want to make a prototype for it, but I know that a publisher might be waiting for an answer from me or some files or something, and it's oh, I really need to do the files, but this idea is so cool right now. And it's like, oh, sometimes, unfortunately, sometimes you just have to like go with where your brain is like steering you as well. And like, because you'll get a better outcome because your brain really wants to work on that. So it's like, okay, just follow the fun and go with that. Cause I mean, at the end of the day, we're making games. So it's like, it probably should be a fun experience as well. And this is not my day job. So it's like, okay, I still want to don't burn out on this, and I want to make sure it's fun all the time.
There seems to be, especially in Brisbane, because I'm in Brisbane, so I notice the Brisbane vibes more. There seems to be a very sort of almost tight-knit community of designers and playtesters that sort of all share each other's thoughts and works and things like that. How valuable do you find that amongst each other, that you all can share this knowledge and stuff quite intimately about designs, and how honest do you feel you can be with each other about some of these designs?
Yeah, it's funny. It's a pretty, like, I mean, the place, my workplace, we do a lot of creative work, and I guess we've always been very honest with how we treat feedback to each other, and very blunt, and what could seem very brutal, but it's all because you're trying to make a better product. And it's interesting, like, I haven't really experienced many other industries that do share that, but I have found, working with tabletop, and because it's a small industry, and it's small within small, right? Like, once you go to a niche industry like game design, tabletop, board games, and then you go to a small city that's on an island in the, are surrounded by the ocean, you've got a small group of people that I think build a community together, and I think they're quite willing to, help each other and be brutal about ideas, because you're not doing it to like can an idea. You're doing it to help that person overcome a particular mechanic or thing. They're testing. They're testing because they want to know if something's working or not. So it's like, I'd rather someone be brutally honest with me, and it's not personal. It's just like, hey, I didn't enjoy that. And you're like, okay, cool. Like, tell me why. And it's like, as long as you're open to like hearing that feedback, and sometimes it is different, like person to person. Like, some people just don't respond well to that kind of feedback. But I think when you've got a close community, it's no hard feelings type of thing. It's just like, hey, I don't think that worked. You're not telling someone they've spent 40 hours like on something bad. You're saying like, oh, I really like what you've done here, but maybe we can twist it. And I think everyone's very good with idea, like information sharing. It's a very, to me, a very bizarre industry where everyone's so open for information sharing, because everyone's helping everyone. So it's like, I might suggest a mechanic that it's like, oh, even in my head I go, oh, that's a really cool idea. But it's like, oh, well, it would service this person's game that I'm playing right now. It's like, oh, let's information share, and let's, maybe that will make your game better. Admittedly, like, I'm on the Gold Coast, so I'm not like in the heart of Brisbane. And so I'm only coming in now and then, but I do keep in touch with online and all that with these sort of smaller groups as well. So I sort of will do it digitally as well sometimes. Pretty cool being part of like a very small community. And even like, even though we're part of a small community, like that community consists of like some pretty big names in the industry as well. Like we've got like, even in that small space, you've got someone like Martin Wallace, who has like one of the top performing board games globally. And he's just in this small subset of designers that just happen to live around the corner. And it's like, what industry would you get to be in where you get to like, speak to some of the, like the Martin Scorsese's of the,
I think that a lot.
And it's like, he's just a guy that's just walked in. It's like, oh wait, this guy's like one of the biggest, well-known designers in the world. And he's just like at the game day event in Brisbane. And he's part of the design community.
You couldn't just sit down and grab a pint next to Cristiano Ronaldo and be like, all right, mate, like, let's talk soccer. Like, it just doesn't happen. Like, we're very lucky, I think, in that regard.
I think you'd say football first before you.
Yeah, well, actually, good point. I should have said that.
That's probably why you're not having a pint.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's probably only having a tall glass of water.
Yeah,
there is that too.
Hence what he is a temple.
Yeah. Well, he's benching you.
Yeah, true. Hey, I wouldn't mind being benched by Cristiano Ronaldo. I'd be happy with that.
Sign me up.
Worst ways to spend a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, it's really nice to see, because, unfortunately and fortunately, like at those events, I'm very busy personally, so I only get some opportunity to sit down and play. But when you get to look across the room and see people intermingling with each other and you know who these people are, it's really nice to see everybody helping each other and everyone playing each other's games. So I think that's really cool, and it's nice to see that everyone helps each other. It's a very good community for that. I don't think there's ever been like any negatives from it. But
oh, it's so cool. Like you spot the people you recognize, and it's like it's like everyone plays a few games here and there, and suddenly like even at PlayCon this happens where like all the designers start to gravitate to, and suddenly like you're just playing prototypes for the rest of the night, but everyone's like loving it because they're like, cool, what'd you bring? And then you bring that out and someone plays that, and then the next person jumps in.
I think it helps, right, that it's something that people love. It's not just, I'm going to withhold this idea because, well, I could use this for a game. Just the process of playtesting and sharing those ideas to help other people make better games is also something that I'm sure people love as part of design and love as part of that community.
Yeah, and I think that this conversation is really important for anyone that's like wanting to start a game to hear, because it's like, oh, there's all these pockets of communities all around Australia of people just wanting to make games and wanting to make each other's games better. So it's like, okay, it's a really good sign to say, oh, okay, like I've got an idea, like I just need to find whatever the local group is nearby and assimilate with that, and that'll immediately like start that process moving quicker, because you've got more accountability, because you've got deadlines that you're like, oh, I need to bring a game with me because people are expecting to see something. So suddenly you start working a little bit quicker, and you might get 15 minutes into a game and it's a bit of a disaster or whatever, but you've now got all that new information of how to like build the game quicker. And then that's the kind of stuff that you could sit on for months because you weren't ready to take it anywhere because you were worried it would not work. And it's like, well, might as well see that now, and then you can get to the next stage quicker.
Yeah, for sure. I also noticed before you mentioned a couple of times systems, and there obviously are different types of systems in nature, systems in technologies, all these other things. I obviously saw one of the systems in the honey buzz thing. That's a sort of nature system in a way. What are some systems that really interest you, and what are some systems that you'd like to sort of work in the next sort of couple of game designs? Or are you allowed to even talk about those because maybe they're being looked at by others, let's just say?
Yeah, I'm trying to think what I can and can't talk about. Yeah, I think any system that like systems that intrigue me are ones that something that I don't fully know yet, but I know other people would find interesting as well. So it's like, okay, it's like a fun opportunity to learn about something I don't understand, but I'm intrigued about. When it's like, well, is that something other people would be interested about as well? So it's like, I'm one of the games that I was a co-designer I was working on was about succulents, and that game, like I had succulents all through my house. Like we were pitching ideas, riffing back and forth with my co-designer. We're like, oh, let's pitch each other some game ideas and see what we prefer, and then we'll pick that. That's our true north, and we'll work towards that. And we pitched a bunch of different ideas, and a succulent game came up, and both of our partners really love succulents or plants indoors and all that kind of stuff. And we sort of like oh wow, we cross over on this area really well. And that gave me an opportunity too, because like, oh, I can now start learning about this thing my partner knows more about than I do. And it's like, oh, this is a fun thing that I can now share as like a thing with my wife, that it's like, oh, I can learn more about this now. And like, I've also found like gardening games do the same thing, because it's like, her passion is gardening and getting out and growing food in our backyard. So it's like, oh, anytime I can try to also find a theme or system that would help me connect with other people around me is really, really fun and exciting. And I think, like the succulent game, that was a great opportunity to co-design with a mate of mine. And, we both got to learn about all the different types of succulents, and then you build a game out of that system. Like I like to work with like the system of the thing that already exists first, whether it's a name or a theme or whatever. And that helps me, attach mechanics to as well. And like, oh, how would that actually make sense with that? So, that sometimes working that way can be problematic, because you have these ideas and then you go to pitch them. And it's, if people aren't aware, like pitching a game to a publisher, there's a very, very strong chance that whatever game you pitch to the publisher, they're probably going to retheme it. So it's like the issue with that game that we had for a long time was like some people just weren't looking for plant games, and that's fine because there was just a few in the market at the moment. And they were like, we love the game, but the theme is so heavily tied to the game mechanics that we couldn't retheme it. And so we got sort of a lot of no's with that game because it was just so heavily tied to the system that existed that we were working from. And then like, well, we can't change it. Like, so we just sort of, we actually just went cold on it for a while. And then we were like, oh, we were going to kickstart it ourselves. So we're like, all right, cool, let's do that. And then, yeah, we ended up we're like, oh, we didn't have the time. So we just pitched it one more round to publishers. And yeah, we got a couple of more bites from that. And since then it's sort of been picked up. But yeah, hopefully that's something that's coming out a little bit later in sort of maybe next year or the year after.
How have you found the difference in the pitching process from your kind of going from zero knowledge, right, pitching your very first game to now, I would assume, pitching a few different games or at least ideas to publishers? I think you've got a little bit more knowledge in that about how that all works. How do you go into these sort of pitching meetings now with that extra knowledge?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest sort of I did a lot of research about pitching and what was the best way to do that, I guess, prior to these opportunities that came up. And the biggest thing everyone sort of suggests is like do your research about who the publisher is you're pitching to, what their catalog already looks like, and how your game can fit into that catalog. Because I think that's a really clear sign that you know their business model and that you understand the relationship, how it's going to be moving forward, because where you would sit in their lineup of games, doing the research was such a big part of that. And I'll continue to keep doing that. As you meet more people as well, you can have repeat, meetings as well. And that's always going to be easier. Like once you've met someone once, even if the pitch doesn't go, like even if they say no to the game, that's fine because you're relationship building. Like every time you pitch to someone, you're building a relationship. So don't think that you're pitching it and it's a hard no and that's like, well, see you never. It's like, no, you're pitching a game. Matt Dunstan had a really good video just recently. He does a lot of great videos for designers, and one of them was about pitching. And the biggest thing he sort of pointed out, and that was like, you're pitching yourself. And it's 100% true. Like you're pitching yourself because whoever picks the game up, they will be working with you for the next however long. And, things don't move quick in the games industry. So they're going to be spending a lot of time back and forthing with you. So they want to make sure they're working with someone that they trust or like, or, know understands their business. So it's like, so that was a big thing of like understanding, okay, even if I get a hard no, and it's hard being rejected, like continuously, like succulents was rejected like 40, 50 plus times, before and that's why we sort of went cold on the game, because it's like, oh, how many times can you say no without going, is this a bad game? But it's just not the right game for that publisher. So I think, being resilient was a really big thing you have to learn. And my day job, I pitch to clients ideas anyway. So I already sort of had a bit of thick skin about, ideas that did or didn't work. So it's like, try not to take that personally. And it's like, if you do take that personally and that was the opportunity to meet that person and build a relationship, they're also going to go, oh, they might be hard to work with, like if they didn't take criticism very well. So it's like, always just be like, oh yeah, thanks for your time. Like, understand this might not be for you. Love to pitch you something else. And, I always try to end, like if a pitch is very clearly not going well, you can sort of say, oh, I'd love to know like what you are looking for. And if I've got anything else, I'd love to send that through or whatever. And it's the next, you're trying to then build the next opportunity to talk with someone. And I think, they're just people, like publishers are just gamers like us, right? So it's just like, they love talking games, but it's like you also don't have a huge amount of time with them. So you have to know that, they're not going to want to sit and listen to 3 hours of explanation of how every intricate piece of the game works, especially if you're only have like a half an hour time slot with that publisher. If that, it's like you need to like really learn the art of the pitch, which is like, you've got like an elevator pitch of time. Like how can you hook someone on an idea? And it's like, the best way to think about it is like, look at the back and front of a game box. Can you do that to a publisher and paint the front and back of a pitch of a box to them? It doesn't have to look like a front and back of a box, but like, so they can understand what's the, what story are you selling? Like what concept are you selling, and how does it work in its simplest set? And that's like what the back of a box normally does, right? You normally just get that really simple, like 1, 2, 3 step, or like, what are the highlights of the game? And if they want to know more, then just be prepared to like answer any questions.
You just do the splotter method where it's just nothing on the back and just take it. Just go. Have you seen the splotter boxes underneath?
I have not,
just
and I
completely
immediately
naked, completely naked, just a white box. That's
flawless strategy.
Absolutely flawless. Have you ever pitched a game with the Flip 7 strategy of, this is the greatest game ever made?
I'm trying to think.
Asterix,
says
Jay Bendixen.
I feel like I have probably pitched something with like a bold thing to say, like, this is your next big game. It's like you have to know who you're talking to first before you have that kind of approach. Like if you've met them before or whatever, or I've definitely come in like hot with some sort of pitches because I either know the person's already, like, and I know their personality type, so I know I can sort of be a bit more bold with some of the things I say. But yeah, I probably have done it and not even realize, and they probably walked out going, okay, mate, like, sure, that guy's a bit full of himself.
Nice. Oh, that was really good. Thanks for letting us know all that insight, man, to your world and to pitching and systems and stuff.
That's okay.
100%. So much of it is like the art of selling yourself and selling your game, and it's a very social hobby in some respects, and it's so much about, I guess, those people and communication skills, at least from that side of things.
Yeah, there's a lot of like Facebook groups and Discords and online chatter as well of like what's coming. You can definitely see it's hard because the industry moves slow. I'm using like bunny ears here. Slow because like a game takes a long time to go from like, signed to even on retail, let alone idea to signed. It's hard to predict like trends. That's a really hard thing to know what's happening. Like, when I mean, there's certain things like, when Wingspan came out, there's just like everyone wanted to make a bird game because it's like, obviously that's a winning formula, right?
We also had the roll and write thing where everything was a roll and write, and then we've had trick takers recently where everything's like trying to do a trick taker. So yeah, those trends are
and
crazy.
It's really hard too, because it's like unless you're on the front end of a trend and you see a trend happening, like to design something once the trend has started, you've got a really short window to sort of get in, like to get if you see a trend of trick takers like just kicking off, it's like you might have already had a game ready that was a trick taker, and that's great. That means you can start pitching it pretty quick because publishers are going to be like, cool, I'm looking for trick takers. But if you haven't made one, you're already on the back foot because, you're trying to build something already to service a trend. So sometimes it's really hard trying to follow trends. And, we were making a succulent game they just happened to be plant themed games like that were just coming out, and were coming out during that time. So it was like, the trend was starting to happen while we were pitching something, and that was like sort of worked against us for a little bit. But, the other thing you definitely see is when you are in communities like that, the publishers are part of these communities too. So they're constantly reaching out and saying, hey, we're looking for this type of game, or we're after a party game, or, suddenly you start to see the call outs of like what publishers might be looking for as well. And if you've got a good catalog of stuff like ready to pass on, it's like, oh, I've got one of those, and then you line up a meeting or whatever. But it helps having a bit of an arsenal of games behind you as well, like stuff ready to pitch. Like I know there's like a lot of full-time designers and that have just got like a catalog of stuff ready to just shoot to different people when they're looking for it. So that's like an interesting sort of thing to watch when publishers are looking for things. But it's also an opportunity to like when meetings happen and when events are going on, and, just going to sort of local conventions and all that kind of stuff. And then you also sort of see, I guess, when people are like before Kickstarters are even coming out, like because you're talking with other designers, a Kickstarter that might happen, at the end of this year we might have already seen some of the pages that they've been building and all that kind of stuff as well. So you'll also get that little bit of insider information of like what might be coming as well. From like a, you know, a consumer perspective. It's like, oh, that's exciting, like that's coming out, like I can't wait to back that. So that's cool as well. So you feel like you're getting a little bit of like a hidden information that's like not revealed just yet. So it's exciting to sort of know that like what's coming out. And you know, sometimes things are announced as well, and you go, that idea, I was already working on an idea like that, and then it gets announced and you're like, well, don't need to make that game, someone already did it.
Do you find that you can pivot though and go, sweet, it's, you know, let's say there's too many plant games. I know that the succulent one was heavily tied to that, but can you on the fly retheme it or reskin it to make it work so that it can be different? And do you also find that, let's say a publisher like AEG has, say, 3 plant games, is that harder to pitch to them another plant game that's different, or is it easier because they're like, well, they're known for these plant games that are great, so that, you know, almost like Wingspan, right? Wormspan's heavier, Finspan's lighter. They've got them in their sort of catalog of games, and they service a different range of players. Do you find that they just go, nah, I've already got a plant game next? Or do you find that they go, actually, we're looking for a lighter plant game because this one was really successful. Maybe we could, you know, shimmy it into our own arsenal in a way.
Yeah, okay, I've got 2 stories on that. So, you know, one of them is it's very hard sometimes to pitch to a company that's already had a successful theme, because immediately they're going to go, well, why would we flood the market more with something that's already working when we don't even know if the product's like good or not? So, you know, you do run the risk of, if you pitch to a company with a game that is very similar to something they already have, it makes you seem like you didn't do your research, because suddenly you're pitching a game that they've sort of already got in a product. Yep. Not the mechanics or whatever. It could be completely different, but it's a product similar to what they've already got, right? So it does seem like you haven't done your research. So that immediately puts you on the back foot. So, you know, we sort of pitched a few games that were to companies that already had, you know, things in that adjacent area, and they were straight up just like, oh, look, love the game, but we've already got something in this space. So if you've got anything else, let us know. And luckily, you know, we didn't sort of seem like we didn't know what we were doing, because we did sort of go in understanding that they did have some other things in that space. But, you know, as another story, the Queen Bees game, I pitched that to a publisher. I was during a speed pitch event, and so I had like 8 minutes with him, and I pitched it to him, and I was like, okay, cool, this is the game, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I don't want bees. I was like, okay, cool. So the game's about bees, so that's going to be tricky. And then we sort of played it, and he goes, I really like the game. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think it plays really cool, but I don't want bees. And then I had a follow-up meeting with him, and he said, oh, okay, like I don't want this theme. So he said, I really like the game. And I was like, okay, cool. And on the fly, I just was like, I pitched like one other, I like jokingly pitched another theme. And he's like, yeah, cool, that sounds good. And I was like, okay. And he's like, he was super keen on the idea at that point. And so I pitched another theme, and he's like, how does it work? And I was like, okay, now I have to explain how that works. So like on the fly, I'm just like, okay, well, this thing we'd reskin to be like this, and we do this like this. And then we sort of explained all the changes that were going to happen. And he goes, cool. Yeah, I love it. He's like, did we just solve this? And I'm like, I think we did. And then suddenly he was like, look, give it 2 weeks, send me some other theme ideas. And if nothing beats this, I'm really keen on this idea. And the game was signed like a month later, with that theme that I pivoted like in the meeting, sort of not expecting to have to pitch a completely re-theme of a game. But it was sort of like, I knew, but that was based on the fact that I knew he'd done games he'd been doing games of a similar theme. Like I knew where that was going to go in his catalog. So I was like, okay, I'm going to pitch into that catalog and explain why that works.
Yeah. I mean, there are games, right? You get, is it Point Salad? Then there's like Point City, and there's other games that
Point Galaxy.
Point Galaxy, that's another one. Exactly. And they could have potentially been other games just a point salady type game where they've looked at it and gone, actually, if we retheme this to Point City, we can put this in.
I do feel like the pitching and coming up with stuff on the fly, that definitely feels like your marketing background coming in absolutely clutch there. Because if I was you pitching, say, the other succulent game, for example, I don't know what I'd say on the fly. I'd be like scribbling Chinese meal below me. Like, no, it's not a plant game. Like, do you think that that's kind of something that gives you a little bit of a leg up?
Yeah, I definitely think like my background, and I mean, play to your strengths, right? Like, so if like that's my background, so pitching, I feel very comfortable in that space, and luckily for me, like that is a space where a game sort of gets its next step happening, right? But if your background is in like systems or engineering and all that, like you're going to be great when you're creating all the databases and the spreadsheets of games and all that kind of stuff. So you just lean into what works best for the type of person you are as well. And it's like, I actually went into a meeting knowing, so when I was pitching Surf's Up, I went into a meeting knowing that this particular publisher already had a surfing game, and there are not many on the market. So that pretty much gives you probably 5 other publishers, if that, of like who that could have been. And it's like, I went in and we had this discussion about like, okay, and I sort of pitched it of like, this could be a follow-up in the same universe of the point salad galaxy, that idea, or you've built a universe. Like, can we make this use a similar art style? Can this be an adjacent game and pitch it that way? So again, same situation, understand their catalog. Instead of it being a negative, use that to your advantage and saying like, okay, you've got a successful game that does this. Can we have a game that uses completely different mechanics but ties into the same world?
That's very cool. So I saw you playing Fromage yesterday, and I backed it up and said, this game was great. I really liked it. How did you feel about Fromage, Jay? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I really liked it. I am a sucker for innovative things, and that definitely felt innovative to me. Like when I sat down, and the teach was really quick, but it was succinct, and we needed something quick so we could get started, and it was great. And as soon as I realized that it was simultaneous and everyone has their own quadrant of this big cheese wheel that they work on, and it's like this next level worker placement sort of setup where each worker you have like, depending on where you place it, you can only get them back when the worker points back at you in the cheese wheels, like Lazy Susan spinning.
That is phenomenally clever how that works, right?
It's like each worker you have is unique. So it's like, not only do you just have 3 just basic workers, each worker represents like a type of cheese. So you have to commit to that type of cheese worker going down on the board. But then you realize it's like, oh, wait, I won't get that back for like 2 more turns, but I need that exact worker for the next turn. And then it's like you look around and everyone's like holding their head going, what have I done? As like for their first game, just watching their workers just keep rotating around the board as they know they're not getting them back for like crucial turns. And I was like, that combined with like everyone doing a simultaneous worker placement just made the game move so smooth. Like it was like I think our first game was like 40 minutes. Maybe we could easily do that in half an hour. And it's still got all these, like, it felt like every area was important. And it's almost like 4 mini games of like area control in a way, of like point salady scoring. But every area of the board is important. And if you let one person get out of control, like they're going to win the game. So it's like you're trying to work out, you can't do everything. You want to do a couple things well. But it's also like you also want to be mindful of like where your workers are going and when are you going to get them back? Because it's like you don't want to have this suboptimal turn where you don't get any workers back and suddenly you just wasted a turn doing nothing. And then claiming every space feels important because there's opportunities to like get extra bonus points by the way you claim spaces as well. And it's just how many cheese making themed games are there out there? So it was like that in itself was a pretty unique sort of pitch, but I was like, oh, this is cool.
I also found that rondelle thing, when I first saw it on Kickstarter, as a person looking at it, I felt like, oh, it's very gimmicky, but I don't, because I hadn't played it, I didn't feel the importance of how effective it works and how well it works in the actual playing of the game. And then when I actually played it here a few weeks ago, I was blown away at how good it was. And we actually immediately played another game as soon as we finished that game, because I was like, I get it instantly. Like I already understood it. Now we actually did the drafting where you draft the different stables and different parts of your actual own player board, because you have these drafting cards and you can do a bit of asymmetrical sort of powers and different things. And that just elevated it to another level. But it was fantastic. I really, really rated it. And it's kind of a funny thing because it's very thinky and you're trying to constantly think, but it also is not very heavy. Like it's not heavy at all. Like I would say it's like light. I wouldn't even say it was medium weight. I would say it was on the cusp. Like it's right there, like on that line. So
it's funny. It actually gave me like, I don't know if anyone will like get the same feeling, but it gave me similar feelings to viticulture in the way you've got your own little player board that looks like, maybe it's just wine and cheese is the combo, but like you've got your own player board that you're building little spaces on and you sort of put all your little interactions within that as well. But then it was also like, it's like the viticulture feeling plus this like point salad mini game happening on the main board as well. And I think like those two things felt just tied together really well. And I don't know, like I had my reservations when I looked at the setup and I was like, this thing's pretty like big on the table. And I was like, is this going to be annoying? And then as soon as we started like spinning it like moving the lazy Susan every turn, I'm like, okay, like I'm okay with this. Like, and then the little, putting a little cheese under your worker. And it's like, as soon as we all realized that aha moment of like the direction of each cheese wheel, and that was the other thing that like that's indicates, you know, when you're getting your worker back is like if it's pointing to the left, it indicates it's going to take like 3 turns to get it back, right? But if it's pointing to the right, it means you're going to get it back next turn. And once everyone had that aha moment, you realize, oh wow, like each space is so unique of like where you claim. And suddenly it's like, it's not as just as simple as like, okay, you go to the wood chopping, you know, worker placement space. It's like, no, that space you just claimed is like super unique and no one else can touch it again for the most part. And you have to be mindful of like how many turns that takes to like reset your worker as well. So it's like, there was a lot to think about, but it was like such a clean system for the most part. I was like, as soon as I played it, I felt the same thing. I was just like, I could totally play this again, like straight away, just reset the board and get stuck into it.
Have you had the opportunity to play it, Lauren?
Yes, I've played it online, but also played it on the table. I think what makes it work is the fact that those scoring mini games are so dead simple. I think if there was any sort of convolution to them, the game just wouldn't work at all, especially because it being simultaneous, but you theoretically could look to the person to the right of you. Not that I want to play with anyone that takes that game that seriously. That would not be as robust, and it would kind of fall apart if it was too thinky a game. But the fact that each of the mini games is so simple, it means it kind of takes away the need to really, I'll just pop him here, done, everyone done, cool, let's rotate it.
Yeah, it's very clever the way it's like it's all familiar mechanics. It's almost like you've got an area control map, you've got like a set collection style map, then you've got like a lane building map, and then you've got like a pair combination sort of build. And it's like mostly everyone understands those core elements. And then it's like, okay, they're the big scoring zones, understand that, but it's like you don't get to touch those areas until it comes to your turn as well. So it's like you don't have to think about it until it gets to you because you can't do anything about it anyway. So it's like you basically just focused on that one quadrant of the cheese wheel at the time. Like you don't really have any control, like the player to your left, like if it's rotating like clockwise, like you can't really, it doesn't matter what they do like until it gets back to you. Like you have no control over those spaces until they get to you. So you sort of, it allows you to probably be a bit more hyper focused on just your quadrant, which does make it feel less overwhelming.
Yeah, it reminded me of a way, what's the Stonemaier game where it's the flip and right, but each of the cards is
Rolling
one of
Realms?
his games? Yeah, Rolling Realms. It reminded me a bit of Rolling Realms in the way that those mini games on those cards work. They're just kind of so distilled, so simplified. And yeah, I thought it was quite charming. I really like that the workers cap perfectly over those wooden triangular pieces. There's something quite satisfying about that. And then visually it's quite lovely. So, I definitely enjoyed it, yeah.
I do like the visual thing of it. Like as the board spins and rotates, as sort of Jay said, you can't get the worker back until he's looking at you. Like your worker needs to face you and look at you before you pluck them off. And that's kind of cool because you see the back of the head, then you see the side of them. And then when it turns back to that last quadrant, he's looking at you and you can pick him up. And I just think that's just so clever, so simple. But
it's very satisfying when your worker's looking at you and you're like, get back over here. Come
You're
on.
mine. You got more work to do, mate.
You get over here.
Shimmying towards each other, eyes meet across the room.
I'm glad you enjoyed it because I've talked that up a few times to a few different people and said like it's extremely light, but it's still very thinky and very satisfying to play. So
yeah, I think the only thing working against it is because it's so big at the table, it does seem more complex than what it is. And I think some people might be turned off by that, but it seems like it's an easy setup. Like the setup was pretty quick. So it's like getting it to the table is good, but I just think like if you didn't like playing bigger games, you might walk past that and go, "Oh, no. Like that looks like too much for me."
I did think that some of the stuff on the board, they could have pared back and taken away even some like the cows and a few of the extra things for me felt a bit faffy for what the game was, like some of the buildings and things like that, especially because they detract from the really simple little area majority lane battling.
Yeah,
you can't do too much of it anyway.
Yeah, there's like little extra where you can sort of get a better round just by like building up those little sections. Yeah, it could have been pared back that tiny little bit more. I agree.
Lauren, you have been delving into the Cthulhu madness as well and playing something that you haven't played before, I believe.
Yeah, it was my first time playing Cthulhu Death May Die. Never played it before. Big old fan of Lovecraft, so it felt natural to try it, and Chris from the community was gracious enough to host me, make some delicious risotto, and teach me Cthulhu Death May Die. What I really liked about the system is the plug and play nature of it. We played the newest released box, I think. I can't remember the name of it, but that you can take a scenario and a big bad and mix and match them and plug and play and get so many different combinations of scenarios and levels of difficulty and strategy that will kind of emerge from that. So I really liked that aspect of it. It just so happened that the scenario big bad combination we chose was exceedingly difficult and notoriously difficult according to Board Game Geek forums. So we got absolutely rinsed, but it was just really fun. It was a game that felt like it didn't take itself too seriously. There's a lot of dice chucking, but interesting use of action economy. I get 3 actions. I can move, attack, so on and so forth, do all these different things. But some of the scenarios will come with unique additional actions. So we had to kind of corral all of these jurors and convince them before the big bad came out. So there were kind of these peoples that we had to corral and get. So that, I guess, just made that scenario quite interesting and unique. So that was really neat. The miniatures are awesome and so, I guess, gratuitously big.
Yeah,
the game is kind of very big. Gluttonous in that way, but although absolutely brutal time, I would highly recommend Cthulhu Death May Die. It's not something that I feel the need to own, but I'm really glad that I know people that own it. Yeah.
Talking about getting rinsed, it was very, very good watching Finn beat Haig at Sea Salt and Paper. That is just the best. He even, on his way home, was complaining about it in the car. Like, it was really good because Finn has played that game a lot. Have you ever played Sea Salt and Paper, Jay?
Yeah, I think I bought it at PAX last year because I was just
nice.
like, I heard so many good things. I was like, cool, this is going to be right up my alley. And because I just played so many prototypes all the time instead of like published games, it took me ages to get it to the table. And I've only played it like twice, but at the time I was like, oh yeah, this is like super clean and simple. But it's like I could appreciate like what it's doing at its like core level, and I was like, this is really nice. But yeah, I did really enjoy it, and I want to get it to the table with like a 4-player group a little bit more. I feel like that's where it will really shine.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it was good to just see Finn win a game against Haig, because Haig is like a beast at games. We struggled to beat him all the time, and yeah, it was just kind of a cool moment to see him. He didn't just beat him; he rinsed him, which is always fun. And also, just a quick little thing as well. I actually got to play the final chapter of our sort of La Familia bloodbath revenge story of myself and G Money Team Dumb versus Haig and Matt Woods Team Brain. And I have to say that Team Dumb won it at the game day. And I have to say as well, G Money is love him to death. He is like my brother, but he's also a clown. He will muck around and laugh and talk trash and not focus, and we have a blast, right? But I have never seen that man so quiet, so focused, and took actions that were really pivotal. And I was like, I saw a different dude at the table, and he was a shark. And it was great. It was a great game. I mean, just spending time with them guys is great. At the end of a game day, we tend to try and always get sort of 8 p.m. We sit down and play a game together. That's kind of a bit of a tradition, as long as it's quiet enough. And this is what we played. And it's just a fantastic game. Every time I play it, it gets better and better and better. And yeah, I just loved it. I loved the experience. And it was nice to take the win at the game day. So
it sounds like you watched a boy grow into a man during that game.
I did.
Like your son, your other son, just watch him grow during the Mafia Wars.
Yeah,
I don't know. We dropped a couple of JD and Cokes off too as well. So I feel like maybe we had some sort of help in getting.
You swung that game. You swung it for us.
You were at like peak
exactly.
level.
It's like having 4 drinks before playing a game of pool.
Yeah,
and you just become a legend. Like you just pop all the balls. But if you have 5 drinks, you're scuffing the table, dropping the cue. You're all over the place. So
I would have been sad if we pushed you over the edge. So yeah, it would have been nice to be mentioned and thank you speech.
Yeah,
right.
sorry about that.
That's a good point, though. For me, that game is can't stop. 3 drinks in, and I become an absolute shark at that game. Somehow, I don't know.
Yeah,
it feels like a terrible game to be playing. A drinking called Can't Stop. It's.
Well, you heard the story from before.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Well, that's a Patreon little bonus there or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, we shall move on to some sizzling games. I'm just going to jump right in and get mine out of the way because it's very small, but I think this is a game we may have all played potentially, and it's Flip 7. I got it a while ago. I played it, I think, at PAX or something, and it was fine. Wasn't super bothered, but I know that Jay had a similar experience potentially when he first played it. I think you played a PlayCon maybe?
Yeah. Like I didn't play it. I just got quickly demoed it. And it was like near the end of the night. It was just like we quickly had a look at it. And I was like, oh, yeah. And I think it's definitely a type of game that's like you have to be sitting down. And it's like any type of like push your luck game. Like getting taught it is completely different to being in the hot seat and actually making decisions, right? So it's like
100%.
I think that until you're actually doing the task, like the endorphins aren't there for you. So it's like it's a different and I actually haven't played it yet. I bought my copy at the Brisbane game day and it's just waiting. It's like I normally take a bunch of these light games to work and they're like the best games we get. And it's like I'm like, this is right up that
100%. It won't fail. We played it, we packed everything up. It was 11:30. We're just going to play a quick little game before we left. And when you're sort of tired to the point of delirium, like you're just not quite there. Everything's funny, like everything.
I have kids. So it's like
exactly.
That's every minute of every day.
Becomes a funny chuckle. Well, we played this game, and essentially, the game is built of a deck of cards, and in the deck of cards, there's a 0, a 1, then there's 2 2s, 3 3s, 4 4s, all the way up to 12 12s. Okay. Shuffle that deck up. There's also some sort of special ability cards in there, which are really interesting and fun. And you pass a player a card. Everyone gets one at the start. So we all have a card each. It might be a 12 for Lauren, let's say. And then Lauren can just say, hit me. And I give her another card. Or she can just say, I'm holding and I'm going to stay with that. Whatever you have in front of you at the end is your score. So Lauren would have scored 12. However, if she took another card and it was a 10, she would then be on 22, and obviously that's a much better score than the 12. However, if at any point of the game you end up with two of the same cards, you bust. So picking up a 4 is good because there's only 3 more of them in the deck. So that's great, but it's only worth 4 points. Whereas the 12's worth 12 points, but there's another 11 of those in the deck, and that's a big risk. And the amount of times we played that game, and in the first round, you'd pull a 10 and then immediately pull another 10 and be busted and straight out. And eights were the worst. Every time you get an 8, you'd just be like, oh, okay, I'll take one. And then you'd get another 8 instantaneously, almost guaranteed. And some of the interesting things on there are like, there's a draw 3, so you have to pick up 3 cards. Now, that's great because you can pass it to your opponent. And if they've got a 10, 11, and a 12, and then they have to draw 3 cards, they have a massive chance of pulling one of those cards and then actually busting themselves. So you can force other players to bust, which is just genius fun and very brutal. And yeah, it's just really good. You can freeze other players with a freeze card that stops them pulling any more cards, and it stops their score where it is. So if they've only got a 4, but they're the leader of the total amount of points through the game, which you're trying to get to 200 points, you can freeze them on the 4, and then they're out for that round, and then they just sit there. There's also a second chance where essentially it's an extra life. If you draw a 12 and you already have a 12, you can discard the 12 and the extra life and then just keep drawing cards when it comes back around to you. Super, super simple, but a fantastic push your luck game. Finn played it with us tonight, was in fits of laughter, blaming everybody else but himself for drawing more cards. He was drawing cards, and then he'd draw another card, and then he'd bust, and he'd be like, I did it for you. I did it for you, MJ. I was trying to get you so you didn't have to pull a 12, and then you could beat Dad. So, and he pulled like a 10, and then MJ would pull the 12 anyway and then bust. It's just brilliant. It's just really fun. I'd almost sort of liken it to something like No Thanks. Like, No Thanks, not really sort of push your luck apart from when you're sort of putting the chips out, but that kind of wheelhouse, like that kind of a game where it's absolute fun every single time. I can see this game getting played forever. And the best thing about it, I just read earlier today, it's 3 players plus. And that plus number is up to 99.
Yeah, I have the rule book in front of me, and
Yeah.
I read it. I was reading it today, and I was like, it just says 3+ players, and I'm like,
Yeah.
What does that mean? And then like the second page of the book is like, if playing with more than 18 people, we recommend playing a second deck. I'm like, you're telling me this game services like 18 people at least? I'm like, that's brilliant.
It was, I'm definitely going to get another copy for my birthday and try and play it with like 20, 25 people, because that would just be a riot just to dish out cards around the table and just try and keep it moving. Almost have someone like a DM or the dealer, like in a blackjack game, and just keep the game moving at a fast pace. But yeah, it would just be fun. Like, it's already great with 3 and 4 player. And that sort of delirious, sleepy stage where everything was funny, when we were busting, it was just so good. And I was behind. I was on 0 points, and I managed to get 74 points and then 74 points again in 2 hands and almost take the win, considering I'd already lost like 7 other hands. Great game. Absolute must have for just some fun push your luck madness for like $25 or whatever.
Yeah. So. For me, I think this game is going to have huge penetration in the kind of mass market. There's some massive YouTube channels that have done playthroughs of it. I've actually not played it yet. I'm desperate to play it. I've tried to pick it up everywhere. I've just not been able to find a copy in Sydney. It seems to be sold out everywhere.
The other sort of mechanism in it is essentially you can only draw up to 7 cards. If you have a 7-card set, you immediately are out of the game. You score all those points plus a bonus 15. So you can't keep drawing and essentially get 12 cards. There's also some bonus cards that like times your score by 2 and stuff like that hidden in there. So it can be crazy. You can get some massive points. I got 102 points from one hand earlier today, and it was just crazy. It's just great fun. So highly recommend.
Actually was looking at the New York Toy Fair. They've got like, I know a few designers that are over there at the moment, and they have like a wall of like the things that are nominated for the year. And like, that's like, I think that's up for nomination for like Toy of the Year. I think it's up like with Gnome Hollow or something like 2 games from the op, and I think a few other things like Uno No Mercy or something like that. But it's like, as you say, it's like it's penetrated the mass market 100%. Like, this is like, the way it got described to me was like, it's like blackjack with extra steps, but in a good way. So it's like, it's totally going to be, people are going to understand that immediately, because like they know the concept of like, hit me, like give me more cards. So that's already in people's brains. So, and it's just added that extra layer of spice, which it feels like Uno and blackjack just slapped together. And it's like, people who know both of those things as a designer, and it's like, I'm sure other designers feel like this. You look at that game and you're like, damn, why don't I think of that? That's so damn simple. And it's like, but it's so simple, but it's so good.
And even like, there's nothing to remember, right? Because the way the cards are stacked is perfect. But it's, well, there are 11 11s, there are 3 3s, so you don't have to remember anything. You just, by virtue of what the card is.
Yeah. Even when we play today, Finn goes, he got a 3 and he had a 7. And he's like, well, 2 7s have already gone out and the 2 3s have gone out. So I know it's only the 7s I really need to worry about. Hit me. And we also have the rule of you must tap the table, because I am not having the whole, like, giving me a nod and then I pass him a card. He goes, no, I didn't want that. I wasn't asking for a card. I don't want that 10. I've already got a 10. We put that back. Like, no, we do the table tap, and then that way it's on the camera then. Like, you can't excuse it like at a casino. So,
and if you're playing with people that never play games before, you can almost just explain the special cards as they come up.
Yeah, 100%. There's only 3 of them. Like, it's very easy. Like, it's really easy.
Yeah. There's 3 of them in the thing, and it's like you just do it when it flips, and it's like, okay, this is your new choice. It's like, oh, okay, cool. It's like what people understand with any sort of roll and move, right? It's like you roll, you get to the point, and it's like, now the game tells you what to do. It's like same thing. Flip the card. Now the game tells you what to do.
The interesting piece about some of the pieces of the cards are, if you're, let's say, the last player in, right? So it's just me left, and I'm deciding to keep going because I can. It's my choice. And I flip the take 3 cards. I have to take the 3 cards because both the other players have folded or busted. So if I've already got a big set of cards ahead and I was like, oh yeah, go on, just one more, I'll take one more, and all of a sudden I've got to draw 3, that's a massive risk. So yeah, it's a great game. Absolutely enjoyed the hell out of it already. So I will be playing it a lot. Those are the kind of games we do love to play as a family, and that on a Sunday afternoon. So it's absolutely perfect. Sweet. Well, that was my sizzle. What about yourself, Jay? What have you been playing? What would you like to sizzle this week?
Yeah, I've got this really great surfing game designed by an Australian designer. It's called Surf's Up. Yeah, it's really good. You'd love it. Well, I figured I knew we were in Oceania month, so I was like, okay, I want to pick an Australian game. And unfortunately, everything I play at the moment is prototyped. But luckily, I played a game that was like has been signed, it's ready to come out at UK Games Expo. It's by an Australian designer, and I've played the final version of it digitally though. But I think that still classifies as worthy of a sizzle because I have played the game, and that's Timber Town. So that's coming out with Alley Cat Games, and that's designed by Ryan Boucher. And this is like a really clever 2-player game. The way you sort of set up at the table is you're opposite your opponent, and you both have a grid in front of you. And I think it's like a 4x4 or 5x5 grid in front of you. And in the middle, directly aligned perfectly between you both, is this flow of tiles that's coming through. And essentially what you're doing is you're drafting these tiles, and because it's a grid with columns, you draft a tile as they go down the flow. Like each turn, the tiles will move like one step further down the flow, and they're just sort of like on a player board, on their own little bit mini player board of like 3 tiles or 4 tiles. I think it might be 3 or 4, and then they push down. So once like the next turn finishes, the ones at the very end of the flow fall off the waterfall and they're gone. So then you put a new 3 out. So you have to plan, because when you draft it, you can only draft 1 tile per turn. unless you have a special ability. When you draft a tile, you have to take it where it aligns with your column. So, and what you're doing is you're building this little city, this little beaver city, or like wooden beaver city, where you're trying to like essentially create these like connecting platforms and little bridges across your city. But you're also, every tile you draft is like based on a type of like tile. So you might have like the green sort of houses that have their own contract types, almost something similar to, you might be familiar with in like, say, like tiny towns or whatever, where each sort of building type has its own scoring system. And the cool thing is this is like replayable as well. So you change that every game. So like the yellow houses will score differently for that entire game. So it's like, not only are you drafting these tiles from into your particular column, and the one you take obviously goes into your column, and you can sort of be counter drafting the one from your opponent. It goes into your column, you place it, but then you're trying to work out, okay, it needs to link up. It's got its own little like boardwalks where it can connect to other things, almost like roads. But then where you draft it is like how that yellow tile will score at the end of the game. And the cool thing is, like, there might be a really good tile you want, but right now you have to wait 3 turns before it gets to the optimal column that you want to drop it in. So you're watching these tiles go by turn by turn, hoping your opponent doesn't take it before it gets to the optimal column you want it in. So it's this really sort of clever, like Tetris-y sort of feel, because it's like you decide when the tiles are dropping into the column you want it in. And it's just a 2-player head-to-head, so it's quite tight. You have a lot of sort of choice in when you get stuff. It doesn't feel like super random because you're only dealing with one other person. And it's like you're really thinking about when you're trying to drop these tiles into your board. But then, and there's a couple of cool mechanics where you can like reserve a tile, and you reserve it and you put a little like boat on it, or a little token on it, and you reserve it so no one else can take it, and you wait for it to get to the optimal column you want it in, and then you'll take that tile and add that to the column you need it in. But you can only reserve like one thing at a time. So it's very clever. It's like, I definitely think people are going to get the same feelings of like what they would get from like games like Calico or Cascadia, where they've got that really interesting scoring endgame sort of point salad of like where you've placed stuff, like spatial puzzle. But it's a really nice 2-player head-to-head. And it's super cozy. It still feels like crunchy in that feeling, and it just feels different. It doesn't feel like anything I've really played that has that same head-to-head novel feeling of like exactly where that thing goes on your board is also reflected onto your opponent.
I find that 2-player games inherently have to be very clever and very good because they're appealing to just that very specific market, right? So I think of things like Beer and Bread, Compile, Curious Cargo. Like, they are always clever and interesting. They always have and they're very tight as well. Usually, they're usually incredibly tight. So I'd love to check it out, and it will be available here quite soon.
I'd say it would probably be shortly after the UK Games Expo. I think that's its like international release, and then I think Australia should be able to get copies short after the UK Games Expo, which I think is in May. I'm not 100% sure, but
Alley Cat Games are a very good publisher. They make a lot of phenomenal games. So
yeah, the artwork is beautiful as well. It's super cute looking. It's like you've got like little beavers building towns on the front of the box. But yeah, it's. I think this is going to appeal to a lot of people because it hits that mark of like crunchy replayability, but not in like an overwhelming crunchiness, like enough where you feel like you can do a lot of like point combos, and every tile you take as the game, like the game like the tension rises too, because every time you add something to your board, the spaces are limited as things go on. So it's like, and then you're really trying to optimize each placement, but then your opponent might be trying to take the exact thing you need, where you need to place it in like column 4, and you're like, oh no, I really need that to land. And then suddenly like your last few placements just screw up your entire plan. And it's just like, then you start trying to work out like where you can reserve stuff. So yeah, it's very clever. I think this is going to be something a lot of people are going to enjoy. Like I bought a lot of 2-player stuff because I just, sometimes I just can't get to game groups. So I play stuff just with my wife, and like this thing hits perfect sweet spot for that.
Yeah, nice. We will check it out when we see it on our shelves.
I'm looking at the rulebook on Board Game Geek, and it looks really, really interesting. It's kind of reminding me of Downtown Farmers Market, of kind of placing tiles in an increasingly constrained board. And it almost has, it's a mini game of the board placement of what you see in a lot of other games. Carpe Diem has like a little system like this, but it's just that distilled part. Really, really interesting. I'm really keen to give this one a try. It looks very, very neat.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed every time. Like I've played earlier versions of this and like played the final version as well, and it's like I've really enjoyed every time, like as that tension rises, what starts as a really nice cozy game as you slowly start taking things. It's, you know, even like any sort of big tile builder game sort of has this where suddenly the points start really sort of coming in at the very end. But yeah, this has it's a 4x4 grid. I'm just looking at the rule book as well as we speak, and yeah, that's the same thing. It's like as you get to those last 2 or 3 placements, the tension is just really tight, and you're just hoping you can just get that perfect tile to create this sort of, because this sort of like joining all your boardwalks and that is really important as well. So yeah, there's this really nice tension escalating to get to the very end.
And you want a game that has a crescendo, right? You don't want the beginning of the game to feel like the end of the game. This feels like it's got a really nice natural arc because of the way it gets more constrained.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, as you start taking your first few tiles, it's like, oh yeah, I'll take that one. Oh, you take that one. Yeah, cool. And then suddenly it's like head to head. So don't you dare touch that tile. Like everything hinges on this one tile. Like I will end you.
If you take this windmill from me, then it's all falling apart for my beavers. You need to, they will not recover.
Yeah. Our children will be sleeping in different houses at this point if you take this last tile.
I'm now hoping that beavers become a trend, the next trend, because I'm still waiting for my first barrage, like the kids' version of barrage. So maybe it will inspire some people to do more beaver-themed games.
Yeah, and this is perfect for beavers because it's like they're basically claiming wooden objects as it's floating down the river. Yeah. So yeah, it's a very cute theme. So yeah, I think it hits all the marks, this thing.
Nice. That is Timber Town. And yeah, check it out. Check out BGG and give it a follow, and I'm sure it'll be on the shelves very soon.
You know that game you've been wanting for a long, long time? The one that's been on your wish list for ages? Yeah, that one. The one you've been adding to your cart and taking off again, umming and ahhing about whether you should get it or not? Well, I'm here to push you over the edge and say go to adventgames.com and add that to your cart right now. I bet you that Dean has a great price on it. He's got great customer service, flat rate shipping, and there's so many other goodies to explore on the website. Wonderful categories all organised to pick the exact game that's right for you and the group that you play with. So head over now, don't hesitate, to adventgames.com.au and add that game to your cart now.
Some quick news and announcements. Sydney Game Day, March the 15th, Castle Hill RSL. Lauren, talk to me.
What's there to say? It's going to be great. If you want to play games in Sydney before PlayCon, the only time you'll be able to play a board game before then is at this game day. There's just no other opportunities.
There's no opportunity.
None whatsoever.
All board gaming has been shut down until PlayCon at that point. Jeez.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you police that?
We have
I'm
people.
in your bushes.
We have people.
So yeah, no, only a handful of tickets left. I think less than 5 tickets left for this event. Maybe gone by the time this podcast is coming out. But yeah, really excited. Last opportunity to just get a few games off the library. We'll have FinSpan there as well to be demoed, which people are only getting their paws on now. So yeah, keen to see people there.
Nice. That was the first game that got sold at the Brisbane Game Day.
Oh, that was the winner?
That was the one that just got instantly bought. We will move on to question of the pod. What is your board game coffin and how will you get it to the table? Now, I already talked about mine. Lauren, do you want to talk about yours? Do you have one?
I do not.
No.
Because I don't
lady.
buy the big boxes.
Yeah.
Because I just, as soon
coffins.
as there's more than one expansion in there, I'm like, no thanks. Even if the expansion is just like a promo card, I'm out. I just
Yeah.
no interest. I do own Twilight Imperium, which I guess is pretty hard to table. But aside from that, I generally don't get the expansions to games.
That's fair.
So I'm, very thankful that I've just got a lot of, well, I guess the barrier that I always have to games is I get stupid Japanese games that there's no English translation for anywhere, and then I have to do arts and crafts with Google Translate to paste over English on all of these cards. So that's my equivalent of this tiny, tiny little card sleeve coffin that I put myself into.
You're basically a game designer at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Developer, maybe?
Developer.
I'm glad you gave more context. I was about to say, what the hell does that question mean?
You're getting buried. What game are you getting buried in? Pick
Is there
one.
something you know that I don't about my health? I'm probably in the very similar boat to Lauren. I don't own very many big games. I'm visualizing my. I used to have a beautiful like Calyx with all the board games on the wall, and then we had kids, and then those things got sent to the closet. So now I'm trying to visualize what the closet holds, and I don't think there's many big boxes in there. I think the biggest thing would be like your standard like Calyx box. Maybe if I joined all my prototypes together into like one big box, that would be worthy of being buried in, I guess.
Mecha prototype Zilla.
So many dead games in there already. They can just join me and rot in the earth with me.
Well, we had some answers from our community, and we had people from Facebook. We had Adam Delebet say, it's not one big box, but multiple needed to play Monster Hunter World, the board game. It's a massive Monster Hunter fan, but have not had this monster to the table for some time. I think that's also an issue. I think I saw a picture of him carrying them all, and it's like when you hold it down here, it's up above his head because there's so many mini expansions and stuff to it. So it says here, I have been meaning to get in and design and build an organizer to house it all for the cards and making carding system setting up easier. Hopefully that will assist me in seeing it to the table sometime. Yeah, it's pretty hard when there's a million expansions to a game because you love the IP and you love the idea of it, but when you actually get it, sometimes it's very hard to get them all played. So Ingrid Wright said, despite loving Anachrony, there's something about that huge box that is putting me off, so it rarely hits the table. The setup is no worse than many other games that I play. I'm sure the box size is just a psychological barrier, even though it looks great on the shelf. And we also had Nathan Etherett say, I got the big box of Everdell, which I love, but having so much stuff makes me less interested in pulling it out for a quick solo card game. It's also really hard to transport, but I have no regrets getting it.
We've got what remains my favorite Discord username of all time, Dario Speedwagon, says, my big box coffin is TI4. Okay. It was given to me by my staff as a farewell gift, as they knew I was into board games and wanted to give me something special. However, I have never played it and likely never will, but I also can't sell it in case they find out. I might end up getting buried with it. I've definitely been gifted games that I thought I couldn't sell because it was a gift, but then I just did it anyway, just ripped that Band-Aid. But TI4, I feel like it's big. I think it's hard to table, not because of the box, just because of the game. But yeah, I agree. That's definitely.
A quick admission, I have been bought a board game by a family member that is not my sort of style game at all. And they came round for Boxing Day and were asking about it the following year. So I had to run it into the bathroom, unshrink it, unwrap all the packets of cards to make it look like I'd played it.
And that's when they came in and said, yeah, because if you don't like it, we can take it back and get your credit. And you're like,
yeah. It's
but yes, TI4 is definitely coffin sized. We've got Spenny, who said, my biggest coffin was Everdell. It's a popular answer. For a midweight partner-friendly game, it was just too much of a beast for me to set up on a weeknight. Having 5 expansions in the one box didn't do anything when they're not meant to be mixed anyway, so I sold it. I bought the base game again. It freed up heaps of shelf space and heaps of cash. Felt great.
I hear a common theme here, which is if you buy a big box game, you'll be selling it sooner than later, and you probably won't play the game anyway.
I did back the recent Clans of Caledonia big box, and I'm a bit nervous that it's going to have the same effect, but I'm holding out hope. Manny said, Cthulhu Death May Die, without a doubt. I've only ever played it once on TTS, bought it as a present to myself when my daughter was born. It's kind of thematic. And she turns 5 this year. I honestly think the only way I'm getting it to the table is to ignore every other tabletop game I have. But every now and then I spend a good while with it at the front of my mind, despite never taking that first step.
Maybe that can be something he can play on her 18th birthday when she's like, when we finally has time to open the box and get it to the table.
Oh yeah, it's a beast. It's a beast to table. It's almost a lifestyle game, that one.
Got to build miniatures. That's a start. Like you
have to build them. They don't come pre.
No, they're all on sprues. You have a whole box.
What is this TI3?
Yeah, it's an adventure in itself.
My gosh.
Cool. Thank you very much for those answers, everyone. We really appreciate those. So for this week's question on the pod, we would like to know what's a unique board game mechanism that you still think about, and why did you like it? And why does it stick in your brain? Why can you keep sort of referring to it being so unique and different? Especially with stuff like we just discussed, Fromage, like that has a very unique sort of strange lazy Susan that moves around and you get workers back depending what you do. One that sticks out in my mind quite a lot is actually, sorry, I know I'm not supposed to talk about this game, but it's fine. Kingdom Death Monster. The way the hit points work. So you know how in most games and boss battlers and stuff, the boss has hit points. And it's usually, 2 dice or a little dial that has numbers on it, or you put 20 hearts on a little tray next to the boss's name, and you pluck those hearts out as you do damage. The way that the monsters work in Kingdom Death is they have an AI deck, which is essentially how they move and how they interact with the environment and yourselves, and that's their actions. So essentially, when you attack them and do damage, you remove those action cards, which is a really interesting way to fight the boss, because essentially you will then lose actions that the boss then no longer does. So you won't see those actions. So potentially you could fight a boss a couple of times and never see a particular action that he could do. And I find that really unique in the fact that sometimes when you've got 3 cards left and they're really hard-hitting cards and the boss does a lot of damage with those cards, it's like full panic mode. And you're like, you have to min-max every little thing to take the right card out at the right time so the boss doesn't essentially perform an action that's going to wipe out the team at a very crucial point. And I think that's really unique, and I really enjoy that. And I've never seen it in anything else. I've never seen it where the action cards that the boss or an enemy has is essentially its life points. And I've always really enjoyed that. I think it's brilliant. So that would be my top pick.
I'm glad you said that, because you just ticked off my bingo card. Lauren, it's a Japanese trick taker, and you just said Kingdom Death Monster, so I'm all filled up now.
Lauren, what about yourself?
I mean, there's some proper weird games that come out of Asia, yeah? The ones that are kind of like the low-hanging fruit are things like String Railway and things like that. Are my favorite things, but one that has always hovered around my top games of all time, which has always felt fairly unique, is the hand management in Wind the Film or Photograph. Have you played that one, Jay?
No, I haven't. I've seen pictures of it, and every time I see it, I'm like, I feel like this would be up my alley.
I think you'd really like it. It's one of those games where you can't change the order of your hands, but your hand represents kind of like a row of film, and you have to play them from left to right. So if you play, you can choose 1, 2, or 3 cards in your turn. So if you chose 3 cards to play, you play your leftmost, then your second leftmost, then your third leftmost in that order. And then, but every turn you get to wind the film back, so you get to move 1 card back further in your hand. but however many cards you play is how many cards you have to pick up from the market. And the way you pick them up and the order of you pick them up also determines how they're going to go into your hand at the back. So all the aspects of that hand management in that game have always felt exceptionally unique to me. I've never encountered something that felt quite like it.
Nice.
I definitely.
What about yourself, Jay?
I think, I mean, I definitely see a lot of cool stuff just in my travels, seeing different prototypes. From a published game, I really liked Potion Explosion. That to me, when I got that to the table, I mean, it's like Candy Crush, the board game, in a way, with extra like actions and, you know, combos and all that kind of stuff. But there's just something about the physical nature of you know, pulling the marble out and watching the new ones clash down. I think we bought this when we'd had our first child, and she might have been quite young, and it was because we had like the plastic version of it as well, and it's very loud. Like every time we'd pull the marbles out, we'd be like super quiet, and it's like, or like when you have to refill the marbles as well, it's like the loud, and you could just hear it echo through the house. It's like, oh, don't wake the baby up.
That is loud. When you refill that thing, it's like yeah, it's
especially
very loud.
especially the plastic
version.
Oh my gosh, it's like to wake the whole damn house up. But I really like any game that has got like a really solid tactile feel that feels like intrinsic to the game. It doesn't just feel slapped on. And an entire game's built around that mechanic, right? And it's just got this beautiful little extra, you know, contract fulfillment plus like combo building. And it's like that to me, that game just feels so tight. But yeah, the physical nature of and I think if that was an entry game for some people getting into board games, I think that would really blow their mind, because they'd be like, wow, this is like a toy, but then it's totally like a game with like all this little like activities everyone does on the side. It's a really cool, fun mechanic. And it's, you don't see a huge amount of it. It's almost like that game did it so well that it's like, oh, do you need to put another one in the market, because it does it so well?
Yeah, I want to change my answer. My answer is QE. The bidding. We played a game of this together, Jay.
We did.
Bidding in QE, but the idea that you could just bid whatever the heck you want up to infinity is just a great novelty that absolutely makes that game.
I think as well, because you can draw whatever you want on the back of that too. Like we were like, when it gets unhinged at the end of the night too, I think like I was just drawing on like just the hand symbol flipping you off with like a $0 symbol. And you know that because only that player reveals it and looks at it themselves, and you just snicker when you know they're looking at it and they're still trying to hide like their like still poker face like what they're reading.
Oh yeah, just like crude drawings and messages like get stuffed, I bid zero kind of thing. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, the idea of like when you present that to someone and say, you can bid whatever you want. And they're like, what do you mean? It's like literally any number you want in the universe. And suddenly it's like, okay. And then it's like, it takes like about halfway through the game until people just get really unhinged, and it's just like the numbers start going silly. And it's like, all right, this could literally be anything. Like once one person breaks the seal of like doing a really silly bid, then just things get out of control.
Yeah, it's a great game. It's always fun. So we shall move on to our last segment, which is Fired Up, and we'll talk about what we are excited about. Just before we move on to that, I just want to do a big shout out to the community. What a bunch of legends. I mean, Jay's in our Facebook community and, Board Game Barbecue Game Day community, and he hangs out in Discord and stuff. And we have a lot of volunteers that really help us kind of get over the line with these game days and stuff. So a massive shout out to all of the people that help at the game days. We really appreciate it. And also just another quick community plug for sort of, I won't name any names because I haven't asked permission, but like someone in our Aftergame community, because Aftergame itself, when you go to these events, has its own little sort of community space. Someone posted on there and said, I've had Scythe for over a year. I would love to play it. Is there anyone that would be able to teach it to me? And someone reached out and said, yeah, I can teach you that game. No problem. I'll teach it to you. And they arranged to meet at a time and set it up on Aftergame. And that person taught that that game, and we actually awarded them a voucher for More Than Meeples because we thought it was such a genuine, amazing sort of community thing to do, to be like, give your time and energy and to help someone get something tabled that they really wanted to get tabled. And I believe it was that person that owned Si's first game day. So for them to have that as their first experience just shows how strong the community is and how amazing everybody is. So amazing.
I think like having people, like that's what makes game days and PlayCon. Like if there's nothing more satisfying than going into a day and sitting at a table and not having to read a rule book, and someone who's volunteering teaches you the game. And there's something so freeing about, you can just start moving around tables and it's like someone just teaches you a game and then you're ready to go and then you play the game. And it's like, I just saved like an hour to 2 hours of my life because someone was kind enough to donate a teaching 20 minutes to me so I could save all that time. And it's like, oh man, that's like the best part of those days, is like knowing that you don't have to go in and read too many rule books. Unless you love that, then you should be a teacher at one of these events. But yeah, man, like we had so many people just like, I've had people teach me stuff as well. And it's just like, that's the best part. Like the community is so amazing for that.
Yeah, man. Thank your board game teachers. They're doing an absolute solid.
Yeah. So
keeping the world turning.
You can also go to Apple Podcasts and leave a star rating or a review, and the same sort of star rating on Spotify. We also have Instagram and Facebook community and all sorts of other things to sort of follow us along with. So all the links for those will be in the show notes. Thank you so much. So fired up. I am fired up. This is not board game related, but it's all good. I am on a binge of watching old movies with Finn at the moment and having a blast. We've watched Alien, Aliens, Predator. We've watched Commando. Like we've watched a bunch of like 80s action films, sci-fi films, and we've really enjoyed it. Like they're great movies and we're not watching them like every day, just like one every couple of weeks. I've really enjoyed it. So I want to keep doing that and kind of curate a little bit of a list of things to watch. I would really love to watch the Rocky movies with him because I love me some Rocky. Oh yeah, Rocky 1 to 5. I don't care if people don't like 5. I loved 5. But yeah, I would love to sort of sit down and watch those films. So I've been really enjoying that experience. And obviously I am very fired up to have my 40th birthday and hang out with everybody, talk a bunch of rubbish, drink a bunch of cocktails. I heard there's a game of cricket going on. That will be insane. So yeah, it'll be just fun and shenanigans throughout the weekend. So
amazing. I am similarly fired up to be celebrating your birthday with you. That's going to be an amazing, amazing time. Another thing that I'm fired up for, and this is, again, not board gaming related, but for my wedding, my parents, much belated, got me a KitchenAid stand mixer. And let me tell you, it's got a pasta extension. No one cares about this. I don't care. It's my fired up section.
You're allowed it.
I'm just excited to make some fresh pasta, some homemade pasta. I'm be filling up my freezer with heaps of it. So we love cooking, we love baking. So I'm very excited to have something that's getting me excited to spend in the kitchen and just spend a little time making some fresh food.
Cool. Jay, bro, what are you fired up for over the next few weeks?
A few weeks? I don't know. Like I'll be the one that brings it back to a board game related thing. How's about that?
Well done.
I forgot
We need
what
someone
podcast we're on for a minute.
Keep us honest.
Look, I have a lot of designs that I'll be pitching around. I've got a few pitches coming up, which I'm fired up for. But you know what I'm really fired up for? But it's not in the next few weeks. I'm fired up for PlayCon 2025, which is still a while away. But I'm fired up for the 11th to the 13th of July 2025 in
He does
Sydney,
do his research,
in
right.
Sydney. Because that will probably be the big event I go to this year. I don't think I'm going to make it to PAX this year. But I am keen to head back to PlayCon. That was just so good to be there. And it's just like next level event. And it's like, I'm stoked to get my tickets already. And hopefully I can get a few more games of Surfs Up in there too with some of the all the board game barbecue Patreons and people that are on the Discord and people I've met over the years. And that's just like, I'm just keen to get back to that event because it's just so good.
Would you potentially be submitting for something for Designer Alley this year?
I don't know. I feel like I do really want to, but then I also know there are so many other designers that have so many great games that I feel like I almost wouldn't want to take a seat away from those people.
Mhm.
I think there's like a point too, if you've got a published game, maybe you feel like maybe to step back and let other people have games at those tables. I mean, I've only got one published game, so I'm not like a seasoned designer, but I don't know. I really enjoy, like, that being said, like, I'm still on the fence because I really enjoyed the time I had being in Designer Alley. And for anyone that doesn't know, Designer Alley is like an area of PlayCon where it's just designers that have got their games to different stages of prototypes. And that's that opportunity to do public playtesting and showcase those games. And that's like invaluable playtesting at those events. And I really enjoyed that time doing that. And the crazy thing is, like, it's bizarre how many people are willing to give you their time to play a game that's not done. And it's like the volunteer team do such a great job with bringing people to your table. Like, I don't think I ever had a time where my table was empty. I think I was like, I had no energy left after that 4-hour block of time because there was never downtime at my table because there was constantly people there playing games. And I was like constantly doing teachers and getting great data for, I think I did like 3 iterations of that game that I was testing because I got such good data from like testing just back to back as well. So yeah, I don't know. I'm on the fence. I do have plenty of games that I could potentially submit to as well, but I also would love to just go sit down and play those games as well. And just that 4-hour block, I'd probably just spend instead just bouncing between tables as well. So I don't know yet. I'm on the fence, but either way, I'll definitely be sitting at those tables, whether I'm the one doing the teach or the one doing the learn. That's yet to be decided.
Cool. Appreciate your time, bro. And if anyone wants to catch you on like socials or anything like that, do you do any of that kind of stuff?
Not really. I mean, I've got a website, so I run like a small publishing company, but not really. It was like when Surf's Up first came out, I released like a small box copy of that just under like a publishing name, which was Little Briefcase. So I do have a website, which is littlebriefcase.com, but I don't really run many socials. Like a lot of that is just whatever designs I'm working on at the moment. But yeah, most of it, I sort of will just talk direct to publishers and showcase stuff to the public when it's ready. So yeah, I don't know if you can really find what I'm doing because it might not be exciting to
come and hassle him in our game design channel on our Discord. That'll be good enough.
Yeah, that'll do. Just come hassle me at the Discord.
Just show up to the Gold Coast and just start yelling Jay.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally dozens of us at the Gold Coast.
Cool. Well, with that, we shall leave everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye.
See ya. Woo.